Chapter 19. In the early evening of November 10th, Bull and Lillian dressed with great care for the Marine Corps birthday ball. They dressed in silence on opposite sides of their bedroom. Lillian was in a slip at her dressing table, carefully applying her makeup. Bull reflected on whether dress whites that had been tailored for a 190-pound man would permit the entry of the same man, who now weighed 220 pounds. They both dressed as if they did not know the other was in the room. This was the night that always filled Bull Meacham with a deep pride in the Corps. It was a night of confirmation when he felt an almost mystical affinity with every man who had ever borne the motto of Semper Fidelis. Side note, translated, that means always faithful. And side note. All over the world on this one night, he knew, every Marine, active or retired, in groups of thousands, in small clusters, or single sentries patrolling unfriendly borders, all of them, to the last man, turned to this night in celebration and pride. On this night they drank to the birth of the Corps. For Bull, this night released a sad cargo of memory that held the names and faces of pilots he had seen flaming toward a violent death in Pacific waters. All the dead Marines he had known, the old faces smiling in motionless portraits frozen by recall. They came to him now, the lost squadrons of brash, cocky pilots, culled from the sky by a world that thrived on the blood of young men. He remembered, too, giving close air support in Korea to a retreating Marine battalion and seeing the dead Marines frozen grotesquely in the snow. At times, he could close his eyes and see those dead Marines rise, see them come out of the snow, their uniforms pressed, boots shining, and their rifles gleaming. And he followed them marching, the lost battalions marching under wind-snapped flags and dancing guidons, coming at him in endless procession, calling to him in the animal roar of many men speaking as one, lifting their eyes to his plane, saluting him as he dove toward the enemy that was always there. On this night he thought of all the dead Marines he had known and not known, and he loved them all. He loved all of them. The beauty and loss of this night moved him. Death in battle was the one poetry that almost released tears in Bull Meacham. He fastened the collar of his dress blouse. In his 20 years as a Marine, he had gained weight each year. At first it was a couple of pounds a year, undetectable even to him. But lately the leanness of his youth was deserting him at an accelerated pace. More and more he was coming to dread the yearly physical. He dieted on eggs and cottage cheese 3 or 4 times a year. Too impatient to endure a long-range diet, he went on radical diets that seemed like preludes to famine, but no matter how stringent the effort, the thicknesses of middle age were encircling him and threatening to overwhelm the athlete's body. The Marine's body of which he was so proud. It's not that he looked fat, he did not, but there is a harsh message in the veracity of collars and photographs. The collar of his dress whites fit so tightly that it was an act of semi-strangulation to put it on. The Marine in the mirror was almost a caricature of the slim, youthful pilot who stood beside his Corsair in a photograph on Lillian's dresser. The Marine in the mirror unfastened his collar and would not fasten it again until it was absolutely necessary. He did not like the feeling of blood trapped in his head. "Too tight, Fatso," he heard his wife say. "No, it isn't too tight," he snapped. "A uniform's supposed to be snug. It isn't supposed to fit like a nightgown." "I can still wear the gown I wore to my first birthday ball." "Big deal." "There's no reason to be sensitive about being a little overweight, Bull. A lot of people are fat," she teased. "Maybe it's your glands." "Quit your yapping and get dressed, Lillian, or we're going to be late for the ball." "I'm not kidding. Get a move on," Bull said, looking at his watch. "Don't rush me, Bull. I want you to be proud of the way I look tonight. I bought a gown that could win wars." "Just hurry it up." "Bull, you haven't been exactly pleasant to live with since the Cuban rift," Lillian said, her voice filled with concern. "It ain't my job to be pleasant to live with. It's my job to fly birds." "It's your job to be civil when you get home." Again looking in the mirror, Bull said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the toughest leatherneck of all?" Then in a strained falsetto he answered his own question, "You are, oh Great Santini." Then in his own voice he said, "Good answer, mirror. I'd have busted your shiny butt if you had said something else. Anything else." "Bull, darling, why don't you use some of that energy and go downstairs and talk to the children? You've been positively beastly to them since you've been home. You owe it to them to be nice on the birthday of the Marine Corps. This is supposed to be the happiest day of the year for Marine, Lillian said. Not a bad idea, sports fans. I think I'll find out how they respond to a surprise enemy attack. He went to his top dresser drawer and retrieved a bayonet he had found on a decayed Japanese soldier near an airfield in the Philippines. He also lifted out a shot put his wife had given him for a Christmas present as a way for him to release tensions built up during a day's work. From his closet, he unsheathed the Mameluke sword, which he had bought the same day he was commissioned a Marine officer. He put the bayonet in his teeth, carried the shot put in his left hand, the sword in his right. Put that shot put down, Bull Meacham. The last time you used it as a grenade, it broke right through a window at Cherry Point. Now you be careful with those children. You might hurt one of them. He growled at her through the bayonet. Silently, Colonel Meacham moved toward the den where his children were watching television and doing homework during commercials. Ben was lying on the floor with his head propped up by pillows. Marianne lay on the couch, her hair in pin curls. Both Matt and Karen were sitting in overstuffed chairs with unopened books in their hands. Bull calculated the distance between himself and Ben, then lobbed the shot put in the air. It missed Ben's head by less than 5 feet and tore a chunk of plaster out of the wall. Then Bull charged into the room, shouting, "Tora, Tora, Tora!" Matt scrambled toward the kitchen, but his father nimbly cut off that path of retreat. Ben rolled over toward the fireplace and armed himself with a poker. He yelled at Marianne to arm herself with a hearth shovel while he held his father at bay. Marianne shouted back that she was not going to lower herself by playing in one of her father's silly war games. If this was a real attack, all of you would have been wiped out, Bull declared. Big deal, Marianne said, opening a book. Matt had retreated to the fireplace and armed himself with the shovel his sister had spurned. Karen had picked up the shot put and was holding it until someone told her what to do. When Bull realized that Marianne was not going to participate in the readiness exercise at all, he took his sword and lifted her robe past her knees. "I want to peek at those expensive silk underpants I bought for my sweet little Marianne," he teased. "I bought her a different color underpanty for every day of the week. Oh my, she's wearing black. She must be in mourning." "That's a little sicko, Popsy, a little sicko sexual weirdness, I would say," Marianne said, pulling her robe down. "On guard, Colonel," Ben called. Bull wheeled toward his son. They dueled with mock ferociousness. The dressed sword clanked against the poker and the shovel as Matt came to the aid of his brother. In the corner near the stairs, Karen awaited her orders, still clutching the shot put with both hands. "Let's go for the jugular," Ben shouted to Matt. Simba Barracuda," Matt answered. Colonel Meacham stepped back toward the door, unaware of Karen's presence. "Engage the enemy," he shouted. "The good soldier will always engage the enemy, and retreat only if retreat will lead to victory." He jabbed his sword toward Ben and Matthew, driving them back toward the fireplace. One of his thrusts came uncomfortably close to Ben's right ear. "Hey, Dad," Ben warned. "You may not have noticed, but that's a real sword you have there. I don't want to lose an ear in this battle." Marines have lost more than ears in their long history, but still they come, always attacking, always forging ahead, driving forward without regard to life or limb. "It's 'cause they're a bunch of dumb creeps," Marianne said from the couch. "What'd you say, Miss Corpse?" Colonel Meacham snapped. "Nothing." "Nothing what?" "Nothing, sir. That's better." As Colonel Meacham looked over at Marianne, Karen saw her chance to join the fray. Using both hands, she made a weak, underhanded lob toward her father. She intended that it hit on the other side of him, so she could claim he had been killed by an incoming artillery shell. "Oh, Jesus, Karen!" Ben cried out. With a solid thump, the shot put landed on Bull's left shoe. The colonel let out with a scream that was heard the length and breadth of Elliott Street, across the lawn, and by a trout fisherman anchored in the river near the house. He fell on the couch, hopping and stumbling, almost landing on Marianne, who joined the frenzied stampede of siblings for the stairs. A lamp crashed to the floor, throwing the room into semi-darkness. The bayonet and the Mameluke sword lay on the floor by the couch. Still howling, Bull was trying to remove his shoe to survey the damage. It enraged him as he listened to the thundering feet of his retreating children and heard Marianne scream, "Tora, Tora, Tora!" But his mind was not on pursuit, nor would it be until the pain diminished somewhat. He hopped on one foot to the kitchen, tore his sock off his foot, rolled up the pants leg of his dress whites, put his foot in the sink, and ran cold water over the injured toe. The toenail was already turning blue. In the first startled moment she heard both scream, Lillian had started downstairs. She was nearly trampled by her children, whose flight out of the living room was a headlong sprint that left no time for explanations to anyone. "What happened? What happened?" she asked as they flew past her. They did not answer her, for that would have taken time, and very basic enzymes of survival raced through the bloodstreams of the Meacham children as they headed for their preordained hiding place. Lillian watched as they disappeared into Marianne's bedroom and thought to herself that it was strange to see Karen leading the pack. So she walked into the kitchen alone and without forewarning to find out what was causing her husband's outcry. She found him with his foot in the sink, the faucet running, and his upper torso bent forward, examining his toe. He was moaning in pain. "Athlete's foot?" she asked. He whined in reply. "Is it your heart?" Lillian asked, knowing that both feared heart attacks above all other illnesses. "Yeah, Lillian," he said. "I'm washing my heart off in the sink." "Hell no, it's my damn big toe." "Your big toe?" she said, trying not to giggle. "Yeah, my big toe. If I wasn't wearing shoes, they'd be amputating this toe sure as hell." "Well, how'd it happen?" "Karen hit me with that damn shot put." "Karen hit you with the shot put? What do we gotta do, Lillian? Write you a book?" "Yeah, she hit me with the shot put." "You mean that big bully Karen hit the itty-bitty Marine on the big toe during war games?" "She pitched the son of a bitch from 10 feet away. If she hit me in the head, I'd be sitting on the right hand of the father this very moment." "I can't wait to tell General Hurley why you're limping tonight." "If you say one damn word, I'll poke your eyes out." "Oh, General, it's nothing really. It's really nothing," Lillian teased. "My little daughter was tussling with her father and accidentally crippled him." "Pooh will be all right if he only learns to pick on someone his own size." "Very funny. Notice how I'm about to die laughing." "Why don't you go to the ball wearing just one shoe?" Lillian asked. "Sure, Lillian, and maybe I can wear my jockstrap with a couple of ribbons hanging from my butt. Come on, help me walk. I gotta walk. I gotta give a toast tonight at the squadron table." He put his arms around his wife, leaned on her, and tried to put his weight on the sore foot. Lillian began to laugh. It was a giggle at first, but soon erupted into legitimate and unconscious laughter that spilled through the house and up the stairs like an endangered music. The children crouched on the limbs of a water oak that grew outside Marianne's window. Listened to their mother's laughter and tried to interpret its meaning. "She's gone crazy," Marianne whispered to the others, who were in higher branches. "He'll kill her for sure now," Matt said. "We might have to go down and save Mom." "I'm never going to leave this tree," Karen said to no one person in particular. "I'm going to stay up here until I die." "They've got to go to the ball in 15 minutes, Karen. They've got to leave by then," Ben said. "Of course, they may have to amputate Dad's foot," Colonel Hopalong Meacham, Marianne said. "That's not funny, Marianne," Karen said angrily. "You'll get the trophy, Karen, just like a hunter who kills a deer. You'll be able to hang Dad's toe on your wall." "I'll be all right, Karen," Ben said. "Ah, the perfect one has spoken." Matthew said from the highest branch, "I don't think he's going to be all right until he's killed Karen with his bare hands." "Daddy's never hit me," Karen said. "That's because you're the apple of his one eye, dear child, and the pretty petite little daughter he's always wanted," Marianne said. "I'll bet anything that if it had been me who hit him with that shot put, he'd be setting this tree on fire right now," Ben said. "Is Mom still laughing?" Karen said, straining to hear. "It's very tough to laugh when Dad's hands have cut off your windpipe," Marianne said. "Karen," Ben said, looking at the branch directly above him, "why'd you throw that shot put?" "I'm not saying it was a bad idea. In fact, it gave me more pure pleasure than I've had in a long time, but it surprised me a little that you threw it." "I just don't know. I just threw it." Once again, their mother's laughter spilled out of a downstairs window. The children listened in the tree, silent as fruit. Then they heard their father laugh too. His sharp sense of the ludicrous had caught up with him, and despite himself, he became amused at the absurdity of events that had left him limping around in the full splendor of his dress uniform. His toe was now a deep and angry aqua, but the anger and much of the pain had diminished. "My gosh, you're almost human again, Bull," Lillian said, laughing. "I bet the kids don't come out of hiding for 3 days," he replied. "Doesn't it bother you at all that they're afraid of you?" "Hell no," Bull answered, gingerly inserting his foot back into his shoe. "It would bother me if they weren't afraid of me. It's my job to see that they stay afraid of me." "That's silly, and you know it." "Silly? It ain't so silly. They jump when I say jump, just like you do." "Let's go," Lillian said. "We're supposed to be meeting the squadron at the club for drinks right now. Then we're all driving over to the mess hall together for the ball." "Don't rush me. I'll wait for the CO." "Have you memorized the toast?" "Yep, it's a great toast. Ben and Marianne helped me write it up. Those two are good with the words." "Did they write the whole thing?" "The spirit behind the whole thing was mine. They just wrote the words." "Did they write all the words?" "I did the polishing." "Let's go, Bull. My gosh, that uniform's tight on you. You look like a package of pork sausage." "I'm the handsomest son of a bitch ever to serve in the United States Marine Corps." "Then let's ride handsome or we'll be late for the birthday ball." They walked out the front door, arm in arm, down the stairs, into the driveway at the side of the house. Bull opened the door for his wife. As he walked to his door, Lillian turned to the tree where her children remained hidden, blew them a kiss, and gave them a victory sign with her gloved fingers. They heard her laugh again as the car pulled out of the driveway and eased onto Elliott Street. Only when the car was out of sight did the Meacham children open Marianne's window and clamber out of the branches into the house. The mess hall, gracefully festooned with flowers, streamers, and brightly colored ribbons, pulsed with celebration as the pilots and their wives gathered for the 187th birthday of the Marine Corps. Arrangements of carnations and chrysanthemums sweetened the air, commingling with the perfume of the wives and the sweat of the first dancers, and made something in the vast room seem primal and libidinously manifest. Trellises wired with roses and ferns rose 10 feet on the wall behind the head table. Music filtered through the hall, light and airy, as the Marines gathered under the soft light to promenade their glittering wives before their peers. The hair of the wives was piled high about the room, eyelashes fluttered and ice tinkled in full cocktail glasses. It was a night of myth and remembrance, a night of rustling gowns, long dances, and heavy drinking. A night of pride among the fiercest warriors on earth, who preened in their dress whites like birds of prey, suddenly struck with the gift of bright plumage. The women of the pilots, in long, elegant dresses, clung to their husbands, guiding them around the room to make sure their proper courtesies were paid, to ensure that the fine obeisances and homages were proffered to those high-ranking officers and their ladies who were in positions to make or break careers. Afterward, they returned to the long tables where each squadron sat beneath the squadron emblem, pouring drinks, laughing, the spirit of the evening inoculating them slowly. Lillian stood at the center of a large group of 7 wives. She enjoyed her role as the confidant of young wives and the envy of the wives her own age. As she stood among them, leading the conversation through small rhetorical hills, she looked around at her girls and could put them in categories by signs she recognized. The daily golfers had dark, unseasonal tans, and the hard casualness of women who had strolled the front 9 too many times to curb the restlessness they felt when exiled to the small towns where the Marines built their bases. She saw the women who smiled too much or drank too much, and these were the women ordered to have a good time by their husbands. There were women who clung to her and laughed at her every joke and administered to her every whim, and she knew that these were the ambitious women who were driving their husbands forward in the ranks. There were many others who could not be shuffled into convenient categories, but it was because they were skilled at hiding the signs of their satisfaction or their discontent. Whatever their story, these wives were appendages, roses climbing on the trellises, Their roles were decorative on this night and on all others. The glory was their husband's, and their sustenance came from what nourishment they could derive from his reflection. In the room, the band played slow waltzes, and streamers began to sag from the roof in scarlet gold and forest green parabolas. And Lillian talked gaily to the wives, her friends, her comrades, her rivals. As she went to fetch her husband, she found him talking to a group of 4 young pilots from 367. Like pilots everywhere, they had escaped from their wives to talk about flying. Bull had reached a point of inarticulateness, and he was demonstrating a maneuver by using his hands as the aircraft. Sooner or later, pilots always resorted to their hands when discussing the mysteries and secrets of flight. Lillian went up to her husband, and as soon as every eye was on her, she curtsied charmingly and asked him for the next dance. Meanwhile, the Meacham children were honoring a secret tradition among themselves. This would be the 3rd consecutive year they had held their own private celebration of the birth of the Corps. Like most ceremonies, its origins were simple, but pomp and color were added each year. The rituals conceived by Marianne were being thickened, lengthened, and enriched. Ben was emptying a bag of dog feces onto a large plate on the dining room table. Marianne, using a spatula from her mother's silver service, was shaping the feces into a remote semblance of a cake. Their noses wrinkled in disgust, yet enjoying their inclusion for the first time into this forbidden bacchanal, Karen and Matt watched each detail of the operation with the keenest interest. Fearing youthful tongues, Ben and Marianne had not allowed the other 2 to participate in their bastardized version of the ball until this year. "Do we have enough shoo-shoo?" Karen asked. "We ought to," Ben said. "I got every piece I could find in this town." "What if Dad catches us?" Matt asked. "How can he catch us? He won't be home until 3 or 4 this morning," Marianne answered. "Anyway, we're just celebrating the birth of the Corps, same as him." "With a few variations," Ben corrected. "This is just our little way of saying thanks to the Corps for all it has done to us." "You have the candles, Karen?" "Yes, but I don't want to put them in that nasty cake." "If Dad catches us making fun of the Marine Corps, he'll make us eat that cake." "Quit worrying, will you?" Ben said. If that's the worst thing he'd do to us, I'd be glad to eat a piece." The table was immaculately set. The tablecloth was of Florentine lace, used only on the most special occasions by their mother. Marianne laid out fine bone china and carefully placed the ornately embossed silverware beside the plates and wine crystal. 2 candelabra burned with 12 new long-stemmed candles. A strict adherence to form was the order of the night. The cake was the single obscenity in an atmosphere of rigorous decorum. Candelabra. Dress for the night was a matter of taste. Ben wore a bathing suit, his father's flight jacket, frogman flippers, and an Indian headdress. Matt and Karen clad themselves with random selections from various summer and winter uniforms. They rolled up sleeves and pant legs which were many sizes too large, and wore dress caps backwards. Marianne put on pink tights, a fatigue jacket, field cap, and her father's jockstrap, which she stuffed with Kleenex. Then they regrouped in the dining room for the ceremony. The children stood behind their chairs, going rigid when Marianne said 10 hop. Ben went to the record player he had brought down from his parents' room and put on the Marine Corps hymn. He then spoke. "Good evening, fellow officers, fellow whores for the Corps." "Good evening, sir. We are gathered here tonight to pay homage to the United States Marine Corps. As you know, the Marine Corps is composed of the bravest fighting men who have ever lived. The Corps cannot be killed in battle. The Corps cannot be denied their strategic objectives by any fighting force on Earth. But what is not so well known, and what we have come to celebrate tonight, is the fact that the Marine Corps is also the biggest collection of farts and assholes ever to come together under one banner." "Hear ye," the others shouted, reading from the scripts Marianne had prepared. "We will sing our version of the Marine Corps hymn. This version was written by Marianne Meacham, the charming daughter of that modest, self-effacing, painfully shy fighter pilot, Bull Meacham. That wonderful little man who calls himself the Great Santini. Marianne, you sweet little thing, would you wiggle up here and lead these gyrenes in your version of the hymn?" In an exaggerated southern accent, Marianne replied, "Why, Lordy, I'd be as pleased as sweet potato pie to lead you big, strong, handsome Marines and your big, strong, handsome him. All right now, all you strong, handsome honey pies and you strong, handsome sugar dumplings, y'all sing along with me. Benjamin, will you please start the record over for your darling sister?" "Why, sure, sister sweet," Ben said. "Everybody together now, you hear? Let's sing." From the halls of Montezuma to the hills of Tennessee, we're the biggest bunch of assholes that the world will ever see. First to beat our wives and children, then to wipe their bodies clean. May the whole damn Navy take a crap on the United States Marines. The officer in charge gave a sign, and the doors to the mess hall were thrown open as the band marched into the cleaned-out center of the hall, playing the Foreign Legion March. They passed by the officers and ladies of Squadron 367 and marched to the far end of the hall. Then, coming back up the hall, instruments gleaming, the band broke out into the Marine Corps hymn, as Bull stood at attention, the flow of history seizing him. Lillian, standing erect, felt the tears come as they always did when she saw strong men march and heard this song that lived in the center of her. The night would go on. The Mameluke's sword would cut the cake, the general would speak, and tradition would be served. But for Bull and Lillian, it was the hymn that made this night a holy night for all time.